Invictus is often referred to as Mithra because of their strong correlation. In fact, the Persian and Roman sun god Mithra in the Mithraic Chronos, or personification of infinite time, is in the center of the zodiac. He is surrounded by his 12 helpers, or the 12 helpers of the sun. You will often find a goddess, a sun, or some sort of divine entity inside the zodiac when depicted in art. There are even old paintings and murals of Christ sitting on a throne surrounded by his 12 helpers. Sometimes these are depicted as 12 angels, and other times the 12 disciples. We've even found some that are depicted as the 12 signs of the zodiac. The important thing to know about the deity is that the deity is merely a character. It is the character's characteristics and the physical posture that are important. The name of the character can be interchanged and applied to different cultures and ages, but the numerous characteristics have remained the same in various deities, including Christ, Krishna, Horus, Mithra, Buddha, Quetzalcoatl, and many others.
Many of these characteristics represent this star of wonder, this only begotten Son of the Creator, God of God, Light of light, very God of very God, begotten, not made. In other words, and as Jordan Maxwell likes to point out, this ball of light in the sky is not our responsibility, it's God's responsibility. It's not our sun, it's God's sun. This worshipful sun is the main star of all stars. It's the only star that is of real importance to us because it gives us our life. And likewise in this macrocosmic personification, the sun and all other stars in the sky are kings, making Jesus and Horus and all the other sun gods the King of Kings. Mythology never ended. Jesus is the newest myth, and most people are smart enough to know this fact, but so many are just too frightened to face it. The animals in my house tend to follow the warm sunlight around the house in the morning time, and these splashes of sun on the floor are in different locations at 7 a.m. in the spring versus 7 a.m. in the fall. It's the tilting of the Earth's axis that brings about these seasonal changes, and as simple of a concept as this may be, this is the gateway into some of religion's most guarded mysteries. If you film, videotape, or even take a time-lapse photograph of the northeastern section of the night sky on a clear night, you will see the apparent rotation of the stars around the North Star as the Earth rotates on its axis. But notice as these stars appear to spin in a circle, the stars on the eastern horizon appear to rise, just like the sun does.
Before there were calendars, and long before there were streetlights on every corner, one could watch the night sky and know when to prepare for winter or when to plant the crops. However, today with our bright lights in big cities, it's growing more and more difficult to see the stars at night due to something called light pollution. Our ancestors didn't have this problem. Their mystery schools and celebrations and their rituals were centered upon these yearly and easily observed celestial cycles, and the night sky would come to life with its stars.
In order to better understand these yearly celestial cycles, let's begin in spring. At 8:30 a.m. we see that the sun is above the horizon, and behind it is the constellation Pisces. And as we fast forward to autumn, we notice that the sun appears to remain in the same region of the sky at this particular time of day. And if we fast forward 2 months, we see that the sun appears to be in a completely new location at this exact same time of morning. When we superimpose the position of the sun at 8:30 a.m. in the early autumn with the position of the sun on Christmas morning at this very same time of day, the movement is obvious. This falling occurs under the sign of Scorpio in the autumn. The scorpion is the backbiter. It can betray you by looking you in the eye while it stings you with its tail. And when stung, the bite of a scorpion can resemble two lips like a kiss. This is symbolized in Scripture with the story of Judas, and Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss, and from this point forward, Jesus is symbolically falling to his death. And in nature, from this point forward, from our earthly perspective, the sun appears to be rising on the horizon, closer and closer to the south each day. It's been falling to its death since its brush with a scorpion. And every day, it's been moving further and further to the south, and the days are getting shorter and shorter. The nights are getting longer and longer, and it's getting colder and colder. On the first day of the winter solstice, December 21st, the sun will not only cease its apparent descent into this abyss, but it also stops this southerly movement. And for 3 days, the sun will appear to rise on the horizon in the exact same place. No longer does it appear to fall, because fall has ended.
After the sun has appeared to be dead for 3 days, having not moved in its usual fashion, it begins to move in the opposite direction, to the north, and the cycle continues. And depending on the Earth's yearly angle with the sun, if you lived above the 66.5 to the 67 degree latitude line, you would notice that during these 3 days of the sun's symbolic death, there is no sun in the sky. In this part of the world, which just so happens to be the part of the world where our Norse traditions of the Christmas holiday come from, the sun will remain below the horizon, in the chthonic realm, sometimes called hell, for 3 days. These are all allegories of our day star. Ironically, the term day star has been adopted by many Christian churches around the world. Jesus is the day star, the King of Kings. Another star that challenged this day star for the light of the morning was called the morning star, known to us today as the planet Venus. Because this morning star challenged the light of our sun, the day star, or Jesus, it was known as Lucifer. What is the significance of being born under a star? Horus was born under a star to the Virgin Isis. Jesus was also said to have been born under a star to a Virgin Mother. This is all part of a microcosmic personification of an event occurring in the sky in the morning hours of December 25th.
It's a clever way to represent that which is above and that which is below by depicting the actual star and the personified deity. The ancients created entire cultures and mythologies around these ideas, known as Astrotheology. And because the heavens reflect the will of the great architect, man has been in constant attempt to reproduce on earth what is seen in the heavens. In the typical Christian version of this story, 3 wise men follow this star to the birth of the newborn Savior. And what is this star, and who are these wise men or 3 kings following it? And does this star somehow lead these 3 kings to the birth of a sun god? The answers to these questions are literally written in the stars. During the Christmas season, you can go outside at night and look to the east, and there on the horizon you will see the real 3 kings of the east. And they'll be following the brightest star in the sky. And these stars mark the location where the sun will rise on Christmas Day. This was even more obvious 2,000 years ago when these legends began, but they can still easily be seen today. These stars will not be in this location at other times of the year. They sweep down to form this alignment during the solstice, or during the Christmas season. It's rather precise, actually, and you can see it with your own eyes. If you go outside during the evening in mid-December, look to the eastern horizon and wait until you see Orion's belt rise on the horizon, you'll notice that it's been dark for quite some time while you wait for this to happen. But if we wait 1 month and go outside during the evening in mid-January, the sky will look completely different. Now, when you look to the eastern horizon and wait until you see Orion's belt rising on the horizon, you will notice that it's too light outside to see any stars, and Orion's belt cannot be seen on the horizon. But if we go back to December 24th, Christmas Eve, and you go outside and you wait until you see Orion's belt appear on the eastern horizon, you will notice that these 3 stars appear to begin their journey across the sky immediately at dusk. This constellation rises on the horizon just when the sky is dark enough to expose the stars. And these stars travel further across the night sky on Christmas Eve than they do any other night.
On this midnight, also on the eastern horizon, you will see Virgo, the Virgin, peeking her head above the horizon. By 3:30 a.m. on Christmas morning, the Virgin is completely above the horizon. She then takes her position. She prepares to symbolically give birth to the sun after stepping on the head of serpents, the celestial serpent, with her foot. The morning sun will rise just below Virgo on this particular morning, as though she were giving birth to it, the mythological birth of the sun god, born of a virgin. After the sunrise on Christmas morning, the bird, Aquila, will appear to be standing on the sun. If we swing around to the west at this very moment, we will see the serpent Hydra winding its way around the horizon. This brings us back to the symbol of the Yggdrasil tree with the bird above and the serpent below. This symbol will be predominant throughout this video. The tree is now branching out into the heavens above the earth. Symbolically, the Yggdrasil tree is growing to represent the world tree. The further we zoom out from this philosophy, the Yggdrasil tree becomes the axis mundi, otherwise known as the axis of the earth, branching out into the stars and churning the milky heavens. This is symbolic of the polar opposites of the earth. Because the earth is tilted on an axis, the stars appear to rotate around the North Star at night. Not only does the earth spin upon this axis, but due to the gravitational pull of the sun, moon, and other planets, it also wobbles like a top on this axis. One complete wobble has been called a great year, a stellar year, a planetary year, and the precession of the equinoxes. One complete great year takes roughly 25,800 years. This 25,800 year period is divided into the 12 houses of the zodiac, making the 12 ages, just as a normal year is divided into the 12 houses of the zodiac to make 12 months. As a result, we enter a new great month, or new age, every 2,150 years. Just as a normal year has 12 months, the great year has 12 ages, and they are marked with the exact same signs that we are all familiar with. But unlike the commonly understood procession of the equinoxes, which runs forward through the zodiac in the normal monthly progression or procession, during the precession of the equinoxes, we go backward through the zodiac as we enter new ages. By working our way backwards through the zodiac, we may begin to understand how the signs of the zodiac have affected symbolism throughout history.
Everybody knows that Christianity is a kind of Judaism, a very extreme, almost ridiculous form of Judaism, with the Messiah given a quite non-Jewish slant and so on and so forth. Now, to an historian, religious historian, most important thing is to know where these ideas came from and how they were fused.
All of the zodiac signs are governed by the 4 elements. Earth and water are elements that are considered to be feminine in nature. We've all heard of the earth being called Mother. Another name for the seas is marine, taken from Latin mare or mare, meaning sea. So this feminine, water-bound sign marking the age of Cancer can be seen as a representation of the matrilineal structures of that age. Call it a coincidence, but for some 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, we were mostly matrilineal and egalitarian in our social structuring. It was an egalitarian society where men committed to the society as a whole because of the matrilineal structuring. The end of the age of Gemini, with the twins, also happens to mark the time period of the end of matrilineal, egalitarian social structuring, where males and females were equals, or twins, so to speak. The bull then became a symbol of patriarchy about the time of the age of Taurus, symbolized by Lord Krishna with a bull. Bulls were also sacred in the patriarchal Egypt, and in ancient Persia and Rome, in many statues and paintings you will see Mithra stabbing the bull, taking humankind out of the age of the bull, or rather, out of the age of Taurus. The stories of the Bible tell us that Moses came down from the mountain with the tablets of the new law on 2 separate occasions. The first time he came down the mountain with the law, he noticed that his people had fashioned a golden calf and were worshiping it. Moses gets angry with this and throws the tablets against the rocks, literally breaking the law. Sometimes you will find artwork of the 10 Commandments showing the bull in the background with the sun disk between his horns, similar to Apis of Egypt. When Moses and the Jews are blowing the shofar to the heavens in praise, they are using a ram's horn. They are worshiping their Lord by the use of the ram. Moses is often depicted with horns coming out of his head as a representation of Aries, the ram. This head of Moses resembles that of biblical tradition, and biblical tradition reflects the old mystery schools. The wrinkled face and heavy eyebrows, the forehead bearing horns in accordance with the tradition of the mystery play actors. In other words, the story of the sun and stars was kept alive in the mystery schools. One of the characters was Moses, and he represented the ram of Aries by showing him with ram's horns on his head. This filtered down into religious traditions by showing Moses with horns on his head, or his followers blowing the ram's horn in worship. This is not some form of devil worship. It is symbolic of the age of Aries. The previous age was Taurus, the bull. This is the bull, or rather the age, which the Moses character was leading his people away from. This age of the ram ended with the slaughter of the ram when Father Abraham, the father of Christianity, slaughtered a ram instead of his son. Just as Mithra kills the bull to usher in the age of the ram, Abraham kills the ram of Aries to usher in the next age, the age of Pisces. Jesus takes us out of the age of Aries into the age of Pisces. And what was his first miracle? He turns regular water into wine and feeds the masses with 2 fish. These represent the 2 fish of Pisces. Jesus was the fisher of men. Christians today often put a fish symbol on the back of their car or on their clothes. The Pope's mitre is a fish head, looking exactly like the fish heads, representing the age of Pisces, the age of Christianity, the age of the fish.
So even the clergy reflect this age. But the symbol of the fish comes from the Vesca Piscis, or the Vesca Pisces. And the Vesca is a symbol of the spiritual portal which emerges from the harmonious balance of 2 complementary polarities: intuition and intellect, knowledge and practice, yin and yang, heaven and the earth, spirit and science. It's 2 complementary polarities that create this spiritual portal if you consider its shape, it is a spiritual portal. It is the shape of the yoni. We must have this spiritual portal in order to exist. The only way for us to enter into this dimension is through this portal, which emerges from the harmonious balance of two complementary polarities, male and female, as we enter into this dimension through this spiritual portal. Our Lady of Guadalupe is often seen standing inside this symbol of the Vesica. Pagan traditions will have people being drawn through this symbol, physically drawn through this symbol, as they are said to have been born again, born into this cult or into this family. So just to bring a close to the talk of ages and becoming to the end of an age, in Matthew 28:20, Jesus says that I am with you always, to the very end of the age. So when the age ends, well, I'm with you always to the end of the age. So there is an age to come. Luke tells us that there is an age to come. In the age and in the world which are to come. So if Jesus is with us until the end of the age, and this age is about to end, is this reflected in the Bible? And it is. As Jesus is about to be crucified, the end of Jesus in the Bible, as Jesus is about to be crucified, he is going to have his last meal, or the Last Supper. And the day came of the unleavened bread on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. And Jesus sent Peter and John saying, go make preparations for us to eat the Passover. This is the Last Supper. And they replied saying, where do you want us to prepare for it? Where are we going to prepare this last meal for you? And Jesus said to them, behold, when you enter into the city, a man shall meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house that he entereth in. And symbolically, this is stating you will recognize the new age by a man bearing a pitcher of water. And you will follow him into the house. And houses are the houses of the zodiac. So this house is represented by a man bearing a pitcher of water, and that's exactly what the age of Aquarius is the man with the water pitcher. You don't see men in history bearing water, you see the woman fetching the water, the woman at the well, the women with the water pot on their head. So a man carrying the water pot is symbolic. It's symbolic of perhaps a return, a slow return to egalitarianism. Abraham was going to stab his son, but instead he ends up stabbing the ram. Just as Mithra was stabbing the bull and Jesus was stabbed on the cross. When Jesus was stabbed on the cross, his blood was collected in a cup. This cup has been a long sought after treasure for many people all throughout the ages. And we're going to talk about this cup. We're going to talk about the body and the blood now. And this is a good segue into communion, where Christians will participate in a ritual, a blood drinking ritual, a mock blood drinking and flesh eating ritual. And this is why they do this, is because of the verse in the Bible. And as they were eating it, Jesus took bread and he blessed it. And he broke it and he gave it to his disciples and said, take and eat. This is my body. And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them and said, drink of it, all of you. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. And it is a bit strange that people continue these rituals today without really knowing the origin of just exactly where these things come from. This can cross the line into offensive territory, but this is forewarned in the Bible, because the Jews began to argue sharply amongst themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? And Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. And upon hearing this, many of his disciples said, This is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? And aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to them, Does this offend you? The physical body and the blood part, that's the symbolic part. But before we can get into this, we need to understand the Dead Sea Scrolls.
The Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of ancient writings containing nearly all of the Old Testament. They were discovered